US 220. Blah. Alright, today we're going to be talking about US Highway 220. US 220 is a beautiful road going through the Appalachian Mountains and also has concurrencies with 3 out-of-grid 2-digit interstates. I have nothing against this highway as it is a good road to have, but I don't agree with the numbering. The numbering should be something like 711, 333, or 901, not 220. This highway was requested by Monster437, and thanks to him for suggesting the highway, and let's get started. As you can see here, US 220 begins in southern North Carolina and goes through the states of North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, the Maryland Panhandle, and central Pennsylvania, and ending at the Pennsylvania and New York border. This highway is 678 miles long, and let's get started with northbound US 220. So US 220 begins here at an intersection with US 1, and it's signed north for Asheboro and Greensboro. And after splitting off from US 1, US 220 meets US Highway 74 Business, and Business 74 East takes you into downtown Rockingham, while 220 North heads north of Rockingham. Here we are just north of Rockingham, and we're at the start of Interstate 73 and 74, and we're assigned north for Ellerbe and Asheboro. But not long after we start with Interstate 73 and 74, 220 is splitting off from those two interstates to head north to Ellerbe by itself. Here we are on our way to Ellerbe, and we meet North Carolina Highway 73, and there's a rest area at this intersection. And then a little ways up the road, after going through Ellerbe, North Carolina Highway 73 splits off from US 220, and 73 East is signed for West End, while 220 North is signed for Candor. But Candor is not on the mileage sign. Instead, we're still retaining the original controlled cities of Asheboro and Greensboro. Here we are reuniting with Interstate 73 and 74, 20 miles north of the split. And here's the exit for the longest North Carolina state highway, North Carolina Highway 24. North Carolina Highway 24 connects the city of Charlotte to the city of Morehead City on the coast, while also going through Jacksonville, North Carolina, and Fayetteville. Here we are meeting US 64 in Asheboro, and 64 itself is signed for Siler City and Lexington. And if you like to see the US 64 eastbound video, it's going to be the top right corner right here. Here are meeting US 64 Business, which is the former US 64, and it's signed east for Raleigh and west for Lexington, while 73, 74, and 220 are still signed north for Greensboro. Here, Interstate 74 is leaving Interstate 73 and US 220 to head northwest to Winston-Salem, while 220 and 73 head north to Greensboro. Here are meeting US 311, which takes you to Randleman, North Carolina, and those who are NASCAR fans know about Randleman. Here are meeting just Interstate 85 North, because we have no access to Interstate 85 South. Also, Interstate 73 is leaving US 220 to head northwest by itself. And then once Interstate 73 leaves, US 220 regains its own mileage back, and we're now meeting Interstate 85 Business, which takes you to Interstate 85 South. Here, and then literally like 2 miles after that exit, we're meeting Interstate 40, and we're going to be comparing with Interstate 40 for 5 miles. In fact, here is US 220 leaving Interstate 840, and is heading north US 29 and US 70. Here we are splitting off from US 29 and US 70 here in Greensboro. And then this is in northern Greensboro, and we're meeting the new Interstate 840, also known as the Greensboro Urban Loop, and 220 is just signed north for nothing. And then Once we reunite with Interstate 73, we're meeting US 158, which is signed for Stokesdale and Reedsville. And if you'd like to see the Interstate 158 video, it's also going to be in the top right corner here. Here's the end of Interstate 73 for now, while 220 continues north towards Martinsville and Roanoke. Here we meet US 311. Welcome to Virginia. And here we're meeting US 58. We're going to be joining US 58 west, while 58 heads east towards Danville, and we're still signed north for Roanoke, even though we're already in the Martinsville area. Here is 58 business east and US 58 west, splitting off from 220. Here we are in Roanoke, and Interstate 581 now spawns out of nowhere, so we're going to be current with 581 for 6 miles. Here is the exit for US 460, and we're just signed with the street name except instead of the control cities for 460. And on 460 itself, we're just signed for 220 north and 581 north to Interstate 81. Here we are meeting Interstate 81, and we're signed north for Lexington. And Interstate 81 is signed south for Salem and Bristol. And literally like 7 miles up the road, we're splitting off from Interstate 81 and going to be joining US 11 for a small bit. And we're signed north for Troutville and Fincastle. And then US 220 immediately splits off from US 11 and heads north towards Fincastle, Clifton Forge, and Covington. Here we are in Clifton Forge area, and we're going to be joining Interstate 64 and US 60 to head northwest to Covington. Here US 60 and US 220 is splitting off from Interstate 64 for Covington and Hot Springs, and here is US 60 splitting off from US 220 here in Covington. Here we are entering the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. And then we have a mileage sign on our way to our next town in Virginia, and which is for Monterey, 30 miles away, West Virginia State Line 37, and Franklin 52. Here in Monterey, we meet US 250, and we're not going to be current with 250 for long because literally right here, 220 continues north. So it's like literally probably like a 5-degree turn. Here, welcome to West Virginia. In West Virginia, we're our first major intersection in US 33, and US 33 is going to be current with us as we go through this small town. US 33 is now splitting off from 220, and 220 heads north to a meeting with US 48. In fact, here's a mileage sign, which is signed north for Petersburg, 25 miles away, and Moorefield 41. Here we are in the Moorefield area, and we're meeting West Virginia 55, which takes us to US 48, and we're going to be heading north with concurrent with West Virginia 28. Here we are in the middle of nowhere in the West Virginia mountains, and we're going to be concurrent with US 50 West. In fact, now we're splitting off from US 50 West to head north to Cumberland. Here is the West Virginia-Maryland state line in Kaiser, West Virginia. And here we are in Cumberland, Maryland. We are now joining the National Freeway and the most hyped interstate ever. And now we're splitting off from Interstate 68, and we're now signed north for Bedford, Pennsylvania. Which honestly, I do agree with this because of meaning the turnpike, but even though Bedford's only like 2,000 people. And then literally there's a mileage sign right after we get off of that exit, which is signed for Bedford and Interstate 99. Welcome to Pennsylvania. Here we go again. Here's the junction with US 30, and we have a mention of Interstate 99. And we're signed north for Altoona. Here is the official beginning of Interstate 99, and if you'd like to see the Interstate 99 video made by Control City Freak, it's going to be mentioned in the top right corner. Also, Interstate 70 and 76 is signed correctly for Pittsburgh and Harrisburg. And here in the Altoona area, we're meeting US 22, and now we're getting a laundry list of exits within the city of, or within the town of Altoona. But this is at the 17th Street exit, and we're now assigned north for Tyrone. Honestly, I've never heard of Tyrone, Pennsylvania before of the Interstate 99 video Control City Freak did, so... And honestly, I do agree that this should not be signed north for Tyrone. It should be signed north for State College. Here we have a mileage sign for Bellwood 8 miles away and Tyrone 14. Here's the exit for Tyrone. And here's 322 feeding into US 220 and Interstate 99. Sadly, we have no access to 322 west, but we do on southbound. Here's unsigned exit 69, and we're now assigned north for Lewiston and Bellefonte. That should not be Lewiston and Bellefonte, instead that should be Lewiston and Williamsport. And then here's the exit for Penn State University and State College, while 99 and 220 is still signed to Interstate 80 for Bellefonte. Also, this is, like I said earlier, this is the exit for Penn State University. I hope you Penn State fans are still not salty about this game that happened a couple years ago, where they lost in 9th overtime to like a 2-7 University of Illinois team. And then the reason why Quarter March 437 suggests this highway is because it's off this highway, and here's his exit 83 for Bellefonte and Zion. Here we're meeting Interstate 80, we're going to be joining Interstate 80 East. And we're signed for Williamsport, which is correct. And then here is US 220 splitting off from Interstate 80, and it's signed north for Lock Haven instead of Williamsport. In fact, here in the Williamsport area, we're meeting US 15 and Interstate 180. We're going to be concurrent with both of those highways for like 15 miles. Here we are splitting off from Interstate 180, and 180 is signed east for Milton, and while 220 is still signed north for Pennsdale and Halls. In fact, Pennsdale, after we get off that exit, Pennsdale and Halls is not on this mileage sign. Instead, Hughesville and LaPorte is. And then here in north central Pennsylvania, we're meeting US 6, which is signed for Troy and Towanda. And on US 6 itself, US 220 is signed north for Sire. And then here's the end of US 220 at an intersection with Interstate 86 and New York Highway 17. With that, now we're going to be talking about southbound US 220. So we begin on Interstate 86 itself, or exit 204, and 220 is signed south for Waverly and Sayre. And then once you get onto that exit, where you're immediately welcomed back into Pennsylvania. And then our first major highway meeting in Pennsylvania, we meet US 6 once again. And then our first mileage sign is for Monroeton, which is 6 miles away, and Williamsport 68. Also look at the view of those mountains. And then here in the Williamsport metro area, we're meeting Interstate 180 once again. We're going to be concurrent with 180 west at this time. Here we are, here is the end of 180, and US 15 is leaving north for Mansfield, while 220 is signed south for Lock Haven. Here, after going through Lock Haven, we're meeting Interstate 80 here in the Pennsylvania mountains, and we're going to be joining with 80 west. Here's the sign for Interstate 99 and 220 south, which is signed south for Bellefonte. That should not be Bellefonte, it should be State College. Here's the exit for State College and 322 east, and 322 west is going to be concurrent with 99 south and 220 for Phillipsburg and Altoona. In fact, here is 322 west leaving from 99 and 220 south. And we're now signed south for Port Matilda and Altoona. Why is Port Matilda on there? Port Matilda is a small town. Altoona is just fine. Ugh. Here we're meeting US 22 in Altoona, and now we're assigned south for Bedford. What about Cumberland? Here is the official end of Interstate 99, and US 220 is finally signed south for Cumberland, while the toll road is still signed correctly for Pittsburgh and Harrisburg. Welcome to Maryland. And now we're joining the National Freeway going west, which is signed west for Cumberland, and 68 East is signed for Hancock. In fact, here is the split from Interstate 68, and we're signed south for McCool and Keyser, West Virginia. Here we are entering the West Virginia in Keyser. We're now reuniting with US 50. We're going to be concurrent with US 50 for a while. And we're now leaving US 50 to head south towards US 48 and Moorefield. Here in Moorefield, we're meeting West Virginia 55, which takes us to US 48. And then after going through Moorefield and other small towns, we're reuniting with US 33 for a while. And here is US 330 or US 33 splitting off from 220. And this is in Virginia because there is no Welcome to Virginia sign on this 2-lane 220 highway. And this is our first mileage sign, which is signed from Monterey, which is 7 miles away, Warm Springs 37, and Hot Springs 42. Here in Monterey, we meet US 250. And once again, 220 is just gonna be continuing south at this road here. Here we're reuniting with US 60, and we're now going to be concurrent as we head towards Interstate 64. In fact, now we're going to be joining with Interstate 64 East, signed for Clifton Forge and Lexington. Here is US 220 splitting off from US 60 and Interstate 24 for Clifton Forge. Here is the here's the title screen slide. It's a beautiful view of the Virginian mountains. And here in Roanoke, we're going to be joining Interstate 81, and we're signed south for Roanoke. Now we're going to be joining Interstate 581, and we're still signed south for Roanoke and Roanoke Airport. And here in southern Roanoke, this is on Highway 429, or Virginia 429, and 220 is now signed south for Martinsville. Here in Martinsville, 220 is now signed south for Greensboro, and we're meeting with Virginia Highway 57. Here we're meeting with US 58 and and now we're splitting off from US 58, and we're still signed. Now this time we're signed south for Martinsville and Greensboro. Welcome to North Carolina. Interstate 73 responds, and now we're going to be concurrent for a brief time, and we're signed south for Greensboro. Here is US 158 again, and 220 is going to be exiting off from Interstate 73 and is going to be signed south for Greensboro. In fact, here is that exit, and 73 is signed south for the PTI GSO Airport and Asheboro. Here we are meeting the Greensboro Urban Loop once again, and this time it's 273 for Winston-Salem, and US 220 is signed south for downtown. Here we are reuniting with US 29 and US 70, and here are rejoining Interstate 40 West. Here is US 220 splitting off from Interstate 40 to head south to Asheboro. Here are meeting with Interstate 85 North, and 220 is now signed south to Interstate 73. Here, Interstate 74 is rejoining with us. You can take the exit ticket to 74 West, or you can stay straight and now be on with 73 South, 74 East, and 220 South for Asheboro and Rockingham. Here we meet US 64 once again. This time it's on overhead sign. Here US 220 is splitting off from Interstate 73 and 74 south for Candor. Here after going through Candor and Ellerby, reuniting with Interstate 73 and 74. And shortly after reuniting with them, those two interstates end for now. And then here is our last exit on US 20 before we're morphed back into US 1 in Rockingham. In fact, here's the end of US 220, and it says 274, and we're actually be merging into US 1 South. So with that, we're going to be ending with US 220 and moving on to the DerpHogs the way it should be. The way it should be for US 220 North is I'd sign Asheboro first because Asheboro is growing in population. Also, it's where we need US 64 and 64 business to take us to North Carolina Zoo. Then Greensboro because Greensboro is a major city of North Carolina. Then Roanoke instead of Martinsville. Then Covington because of Interstate 64 and US 60. And then Cumberland because of Interstate 68, and you can take 68 west to bypass the Pennsylvania Turnpike and get back onto Interstate 70, which takes you to points west. And then north of Cumberland, I'll skip Bedford and do Altoona. And then State College because of Penn State and US 322. And then north of State College, I do Williamsport and skip Bellefonte. And then north of Williamsport, I'd actually triple sign Rochester, Binghamton, and Ithaca. The reason is because you can take 86 west to 390, which takes you to Rochester, or you can take 86 east to 81 and 88, which takes you to Binghamton, or you can stay straight on, I think it's like New York Highway 34, which takes you to Ithaca and Syracuse to Interstate 90. So that's why I assigned those three cities. For 220 South, I'll do Williamsport from the beginning, then State College, then Altoona, then Cumberland, and then again Covington because of Interstate 64 and US 60. I'm not going to assign any West Virginia towns because they're like less than 3,000 people, and and then Roanoke from Covington, then Greensboro from Roanoke, not Martinsville, and then Asheboro, and then I'll dual sign Rockingham and Charlotte. The reason is because you can take one north through Rockingham, or you can take that 74 business into Rockingham, or you can stay straight on 220 South, which is angling towards 1 South, which takes you to 74, which 74 ultimately takes you to Charlotte. Sorry for spelling Charlotte wrong, I was in a rush for doing this. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of US 220. I know I promised you 64 westbound, but I really wanted to make this video instead. Don't worry, I'm still working on US 64 westbound. I'm slowly progressing through that. Hopefully I'll have that out by sometime next week. So expect a 64 westbound video next week. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.